Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of AI in Recruitment, the podcast series where we delve into the fascinating world where artificial intelligence and recruiting meet. That's right, 15 episodes. My name is still Jasper Spanjaart, and joining me, as always, is Martijn Hemminga. Martijn, we have some pretty exciting topics lined up for today, don't we?
Yes, we have, absolutely. And today we have a special guest.
Which is very exciting for us.
Yes, of course, and we have to be very neat and...
Yeah,
it's a very important guest.
No swearing.
Yeah. Because it's the official sponsor of the AI in Recruitment podcast series. It's 8vance, the market leader in recruitment. And before Laurens, I will introduce you. I'll first do the official promo talk we always do, because it's always live.
It's always live.
And it's always Jasper, so I don't know why I have to say it now.
I thought after the summer, go for something slightly different, and you do it this time.
Okay, I put my podcast voice on. 8vance is the market leader in recruitment. They've trained their AI on staggering 85 million resumes. Let 8vance also accurately predict the best job for your candidates. So now we're thrilled to welcome Laurens Waling, Chief Evangelist at 8vance. Welcome, Laurens.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Martijn. Good morning, Jasper.
How about that for an introduction, right? Yeah. You've never have to do that read. It's not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, it is.
Oh, it is.
It's not that easy.
No, it isn't. No. It's great to have you here, Laurens. We obviously have a lot to sort of discuss today about AI in recruitment and obviously how 8vance is contributing to that industry. But before we sort of dive into all of that, would you like to introduce yourself firstly?
Yeah, sure. My name is Laurens. I'm 41 years old and I'm the Chief Evangelist of 8vance.
Chief Evangelist. That is a great title. How do you become the Chief Evangelist of 8vance?
Well, I was looking for a title where I could just, how to say, evangelize all the possibilities of AI. And that's what I'm doing every day. I'm just looking for a title that reflects what I'm doing on a daily basis. And that's basically, I go everywhere. I'm on stage. I write a lot on social media. Do podcasts like this. Usually most of the time I'm evangelizing the possibility of AI, which I think we're not using enough at the moment. So that's why I am called Chief Evangelist in the board of the company. As a marketing director internally, we also call it like that. Trying to position the technology that we've made at 8vance in the market. That's my role. Yeah.
Okay, so did you get to pick your own title then? It almost sounded as if you came into the company like you can have any title you want, mate.
How it goes with scale-ups. We basically, at the first time, we really need somebody to do the marketing professional.
Yeah.
Actually, the first one in the company doing the marketing more or less full time. And they had an idea, we need some kind of marketing director. And I thought, I don't want to be marketing director. Let's do something more fancy. And together we came up with the Chief Evangelist.
Yes. And the other people in the marketing department, are there more?
Sometimes I have a few colleagues, hires more now and then, but not full fixed team. No.
Okay, so not assistant to the chief evangelist.
Assistant to the regional manager. Oh, yes. The office in my head. Yeah.
No, I don't have those. We have a very flexible hybrid company with a lot of hires in the marketing team, but no fixed teammates at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we every podcast we have those lines we tell about what you do with 8vance.
Yeah.
But I, as a evangelist, a chief evangelist, you can do it better, I think. So, what is 8vance?
8vance is an AI native company. We started in 2013 developing AI algorithms to predict who's the best person for the job. What we did is we trained our AI on lots of data about the labor market, data on profiles, data on vacancies, and we try to find correlations between skills, between education, between jobs, titles, function titles. And we trained our AI to predict for a certain profile that we get, or resume, or somebody answering a few questions, what are the missing valuables. So we can standardize and enrich profiles, giving back a complete standardized format with lots of most important skills that people cannot come up with themselves. If I ask you what is the number, can you give me your skills? Maybe you give up 10 or 20 skills. We explore a broad range of skills. I put the number 27,000 there. That's including synonyms. You could say there's a unique number of 12,000 skills in our database. And for all of these skills, we're able to measure, based on statistics, what is your score on that skill. And then we can give back the highest scoring skills. So that could be like 200 skills for your profile. If you show these 200 skills to somebody, you would say, oh yeah, that's true. I can do this, I can do that, I can do that as well.
So there's skills that people didn't even think about having.
Exactly.
Okay.
Synonyms and skills that you can probably learn quite quickly as well.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And we do the same thing on the other side, on the demand side for jobs. When there are skills required, there are often just a few skills, like 5 or 6 skills in the vacancy text. We predict like 200 skills that are required for the vacancy text. And then there's many more data points on both sides for the candidate and for the job to start calculating the exact match.
But when you describe this, because it sounds fascinating, and obviously we're well familiar, I've read the line about 2,000 times, so I'm well familiar with your company, but matching people like that in a completely new way, that is very intriguing. To me, though, the recruitment scene isn't particularly the scene that goes, well, let's do this. Let's throw away the CV and let's just do the skills matching on 200 data points.
Exactly.
So I'm going to have to start going to a question here, but it seems vastly different from the traditional recruitment method. Is that something that you encounter all the time?
That's my job. That's what my job is all about.
Okay.
I experience a lot of enthusiasm for this new way of working. People want to talk about it. Yeah, let's try this. But really implementing it is a totally different way of working. And it requires a cultural shift. It requires totally different thinking of what is the position of a recruiter at all. Do we need a recruiter if we have this kind of technology? So the adoption of this technology, implementation, is a really tough process.
But because it's not only recruitment part, it's also the internal HR part, of course.
If you really are using the potential of this technology, for all parties, things change. For the hiring manager, we can do much more things himself. We can maybe get pre-selected candidates. They can spend far more time on the pre-selected candidate. For the candidate himself, they get far better candidate experience, get far better matches. Can also far better prepare for the interviews that you need to do. And then there's a totally different role for the recruiter. So it changes things so much.
And what is the ideal department to enter a company or an organization? Is it HR or recruitment or?
Well, to be honest, we still don't know. Even after 10 years and trying lots of different entry points, we still haven't found the golden bullet, so to say.
So some companies, you start with HR?
Sometimes we start with recruitment and say, hey, you have a lack of people. Let's just use the technology to find more people, like we do with the energy firms, the big electrician companies. They are in need for solar panel engineers and stuff like that. We find, based on skills, people that could do the job that haven't been thinking about doing the job before, because they might be working at something completely else, but they, based on their skills, and then the skills is like something like soft skills, and say something about their personality, and hard skills, we can predict that somebody is trainable for the job. So we find somewhere else in the labor market, for instance, in a bakery, people that work quite precise, can follow hygienic routines. We say, hey, wait, this is the same way people could work as an electrician, follow routines, work very precise, stuff like that. So we make job transfers, we predict job transfers, and then we enter a company or a recruitment. This is part. But then another company, we enter through an internal mobility part, because they have problems maintaining people, and they want to give them more perspectives internally. So we do an internal match if the company is large enough.
So, and on your website, I read something about the 27,000 skills. That's a lot. So how did you manage that?
Well, I put there the largest number, like I said before, that's including the synonyms and some translations, so 12,000 unique skills. We identified those skills looking at lots of data, and we're trying to feed our system with as much data as possible. We're doing this for many years. And most of the data you get nowadays, of course, is from scraping the internet. Scraping is easy. Many people do that with vacancies, where there's lots of text and there's skills in there. You can see correlations from there. Easy starting point. A little bit more difficult, especially nowadays when LinkedIn started closing their information, is scraping profiles. But up until 1 year ago, it was very easy to scrape all LinkedIn profiles that were publicly published. So people that said, hey, my LinkedIn profile is visible in Google. Then you can search through all these profiles and you can just get you could get, that's now not possible anymore, but we could it up until 1 year ago, get all the information about their education, job experience, and also skills that people named on their profile. And based on that information, for years, we will be able to training our AI. And altogether, we got like 85 million profiles with all this information on there, and that's where we trained the basics for our most of the important information for our AI. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of data and a lot of profiles, and I know that some people in the market have sort of raised concerns about that, and I know you've been one to address it properly, but it's, you know, they're saying the sort of like the data wasn't used for the originally intended recruitment purposes, because I don't think many people knew that their LinkedIn was open to Google, for example. Just a quick example. How do you sort of respond to those concerns?
Well, first of all, we anonymize the data immediately once we get there. So we don't want to handle privacy data, of course.
Yeah.
So once we scrape the information, we remove names, we remove every identifiers, and that's also unique functions. So if somebody with a profile, hey, I'm the minister president, of course we delete this profile because we don't want to have the information linked back. So we're making clear that the data we store is not identifiable anymore, and you cannot retrieve the personal information. So there's only a small step in between. We scrape the information until we anonymize it. In this small step, we handle information that somebody published online, and there we have a right to do so because it doesn't harm the person. You don't notice it, and we have a public purpose for it. We want to make the labor market more transparent. This is how AI training is done. It's the same way as Google works. Google's just scraping all the internet, stores all the information. Google does not remove the identifiable information. So we're actually doing it in a far better way. You could say, you could compare it to how a search engine is doing it. Storing the information that's being scraped locally, but we store anonymously. So it's not data anymore, so we do not have to then apply GDPR because it's not profile information anymore.
Okay, and you just mentioned that a year ago, sort of the LinkedIn door closed as far as scraping that information. How has that changed the methods of the company to try and get, because obviously if you've got a year-old data, that's obviously going to be outdated, so you need a sort of you need extra additional data on all those different people. How does the company does all the scraping now?
Yeah, so we're dealing with the different strategies there. One strategy, of course, is going to LinkedIn officially, see if we can get the data from LinkedIn still with accordance of LinkedIn. Second one, there's many other data sources. Of course, LinkedIn is by far the largest data source, but there are many sources like GitHub or like niche databases where people store in profiles for local share profiles, but they're more specialized in niche market, or websites where people share information. They publish an article, and beneath the article they put some resume of the article. There are still lots of places on the internet where you can find information about resumes from people. So it's not that it's completely gone, but this would be ideal if this would be open again to keep it up to date. But like I said, the training is already done on most of this information years ago, and we're keeping it up to date with information also from vacancies, for instance. So if vacancies change, we can find new skills in there. And that's, for instance, it's like 35 million vacancies that we have in our database. It's every day, just in the Netherlands, is 15,000 new vacancies being published there. So we get those information, we analyze those. So there is, of course, many ways to keep it up to date. And it's automatically, it's a dynamic taxonomy that we've created. But it would be nice, of course, if there would be a way that we could still use the LinkedIn data for this training purposes. Yes.
And from your customers, do you use their anonymous data, or is it depending on the contract?
No, in general not, unless specifically the customer says, yeah, you can do it, and the users of the customer specifically said, yes, you can. But in practice, that's not the case. For training data, we do not use the customer data.
Yeah. And if you look at the new EU AI Act, you've got 2 years. Companies do have 2 years to comply with it. If you look at it, so is this something? Of course, you have to comply with it within 2 years. But are you already, or are you working on it?
Yes, we are fully working on this, of course. trying to do as much as possible. We want to apply, and I think it's in some way it's good that there's regulation.
Yeah.
I have some concerns because I think it's a lot that you need to need to do. It costs a lot of money. It takes out. It makes barriers for newcomers in the market. I have also lots of remarks about it, but in general, we are applying. We are already confirming, and we're trying to do our best to confirm as much as possible in the coming years.
What's the biggest remark that you've got about it? Because obviously I tried to read through it, and it's not easy to read through because legal documents never are. I think they're purposefully not really easy to read. They're not really like, sitting beside the beach and reading that on holiday. But what's the biggest remark that you've got?
It is that in itself. It is the fact that you need somebody legal in your company to read this through and to make something that is being improved. That costs a lot of money, and it's just work for the legal department. Yeah, it scares out the users. So we have a company saying, let's not start this adventure because there might be some questions and we need legal experience. That takes time from our internal legal. Yeah. So it's legal departments start to talk to each other. And even though there was no issue at all, still the adventure of getting there, having to talk with legal people, it's just nonsense. And it's my biggest remark. It costs a lot of money. It's a lot of
that makes sense. And especially for startups and scale-ups that those don't typically have the resource to, let's just hire a lawyer permanently for a few months or for a year. That's impossible. Like, you can't afford that because you need every penny that you've got, right?
I think there will be companies who make a lot of money about helping other companies to comply.
Yeah, and don't forget the audit companies that will absolutely be like happy. So we should start an audit company. That's really great. Maybe. That's a great business proposal.
Okay. Great marketing there.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
Just what the thing I get so upset about is because we are having a purpose, and the purpose is to make this market more transparent, more open, more access to work for everybody, better work for everybody. And there is a problem at the moment with, for instance, diversity and inclusion. Lots of people do not get fair access to the labor market. With this technology, we're trying to solve these large problems. So you would say, like, government should push this kind of technology, and instead of just putting brakes on here, because there might be some danger. No, the danger is now in the recruiters and the hiring managers keeping people out of the market because of all of their bias in people. Yeah. And now they're afraid that these systems might have a little bias. It's weird. It's like if you go on a travel and you go to a travel agency, nobody's asking for the bias for the travel agency agent and say you have a bias for a certain location, and then you go to Booking.com and nobody's asking what's the bias in Booking.com for a certain travel location. People can handle this certain small bias in systems themselves. Yes.
But if you look at the triangle in the EU Act, then work is on the
right at the top,
right on the top.
Yeah.
So
it's high risk. Yeah,
it's high risk. So.
And I see, of course, it's a high impact on people's life, of course. Yeah, but another trend I see is that we're job crafting. We're putting work in smaller pieces, breaking it up into smaller pieces. So more and more, there's matching involved in finding the right people for the right task, role, project, internal in companies, and also people. You don't have one lifelong career and one-time matching or a few times. No. People shift work every year sometimes, or quite often. See how many people are unhappy in the labor market, or they're looking for some other job. Almost half of the people, and if people are not happy, and we could solve all this with better matching technology, making people happier, making more productive, and also large energy crisis, for instance, or any crisis that we're dealing with. It's just a matter of putting the people in the right roles.
True.
And so I think government should push this kind of technology instead of putting the brakes on, and that's what makes me so upset about this record.
It's quite visible, yeah.
Okay. I didn't see something. So we can talk about it for hours. I still got a lot of questions, but I don't want this podcast to be 2 or 3 hours because there's more to do today. So before we move to our next questions, we always ask our guests to bring a piece of AI news. So something you read this summer or yesterday, what you thought, hey, that's interesting. So and it doesn't have to relate with recruitment. It can be broader.
Anything.
Yeah.
Well, there are a few things that I think were remarkable. First of all, there have been news from Gartner that we're over the hype cycle with AI in technology. First legislation in California, now also outside European Union, that there is for AI.
Yeah.
I thought was newsworthy. But let's mention the shift that I saw from diversity, equity, and inclusion, from D&I to M&I. That's to merit excellence and intelligence. It's actually the idea of not putting demographic rules on people, but just focus on performance indicators for people, and just say that then naturally demographic will follow. You see this as a big trend, and there was some news about it last week. Of course, people from D&I say, "Hey, is this the right direction?" But you see, many big companies now are shifting towards letting go of D&I and more focusing on this MI, merit, excellence, and intelligence approach. And I think it's something very interesting in our market.
Yeah, you just mentioned the valley of disappointment, is it called, or
The
in the hype cycle.
The valley of disillusionment.
Yeah, disillusionment.
Yeah.
So, is it because it's a standard graph they have, so it's normal
for every bit of technology.
Yeah,
right?
for every bit of technology. Do you see also, or you as a positive influencer, you should say no, we're still on the.
Well, do you have to make a distinction between generative AI,
Of course.
and specific AI?
Yeah.
And what we are building here is specifically trained AI. And what we are now, the hype cycle all about was these generative AI tools. And when people start to understand the differences between that, I would say from specific AI, we are still before the hype cycle. People still have to get used and know that there are specific AI available in the recruitment scene.
So you would say that the sort of the Gartner hype cycle would revolve mainly about generative AI, and we've sort of dubbed it the AI hype cycle, but it's obviously generative AI.
Exactly.
Okay. Because I can get with generative AI to push back on that, because I think it's a very true observation, because with every bit of technology we think it's the shit, and then a few weeks later we find out it's not quite doing what we want it to do, and then a few months later you think, what was all the fuzz about? Or even years, what was all the fuzz about? We've seen it with VR and AR, where obviously it's still growing, that technology, but we all thought we could envision ourselves with VR headsets in our living room 2 years down the line, and obviously that hasn't happened. I think with Gen AI, it's sort of become, for me, like obviously we use it for our jobs, we use it for even like finding recipes or stuff like that. Yeah. It's sort of stagnated, I feel like, the capabilities. Like in terms of the output that you're getting, it's not really, obviously there's new models, but they're still going to be built mainly on OpenAI's GPT models. So it's, I can see why people would say it's been disappointing now, because it's always the case with technology. Something arises and you think it's the absolute bollocks and it's awesome, and then it sort of stays at that level, whereas you expect that improvement to happen every month. And obviously there's been improvements, but it's maybe you can never do that. You can launch and then you've got your big boom, and then it's sort of where are we going now? Is it the same for you guys?
Yeah, I see the same thing. Although I think we still haven't by far used all the possibilities that generative AI has to offer.
Okay.
I also see there's a pushback also from governments telling their, for instance, civil services not to use generative AI in work and stuff like that. Yeah. That's not helping getting to a real productive. I do like 20 prompts a day. There's not going out an email before having it checked with generative AI if it's correct.
You don't send out an email without having it checked.
In general, not. I always do a final check if the tone is right. Or what's
okay.
I use it so often for almost everything.
Okay.
But I think the interesting thing is the combination with the generative AI with specific AI.
Yeah.
Because then you can have like the chat robots, and then you can talk to AI just asking it questions. And for instance, I get your resume. Hey, here's the resume from Jasper. If I ask a generative AI, what are the skills from Jasper? I get a nice overview of skills, and maybe even jobs that I could link it to. But if I ask the same question again, I get different skills. So
true.
People do not start to believe it's true. It's just creative, and for inspiring reasons, it's nice, but it's not a real unknown truth. If you would link that, for instance, to our specific AI, you would get the same results every time for skills and skills levels, exactly. And then you could start asking questions to this AI. What kind of people do I have internally? What kind of skills do I need? Where do I find these people in the labor market?
You can skills map it. Yeah.
You get like truth answers, more truth based on statistics, all the time the same answers. So this combination would be awesome for the recruitment field.
No, I can see that. I can absolutely see that. But it's just a case of like, are we gonna get there? Like, are there gonna be too many barriers that are gonna have to be overcome? And then it obviously is the AI Act and everything like that, and people are sort of scared. Like, but for me, like, to push back on the generative AI piece, because the only problem I see with it is that people still using it for the same purposes. And if you're doing content creation, that's fine. But it's like we get so many press releases where it's like, have you taken the time to read what you're putting out to the world? Because a press release is quite an important document. Like, you're asking journalists to go over that and see if there's any news, and we can publish it on a platform like we could potentially do with recruitment tech. And so often I read this stuff and I go, it's just nonsense. Like, there's no, like, obviously with newspapers, that's my frustration, that there's no real quality control anymore. It's just editors pushing out on limited time, just pushing out to the world what they have. But with this type of stuff where you're a company, you're launching a product, and we get plenty of these press releases, and I go, it's a horrible document to read. Like, has no one, who's got some capability of reading texts and analyzing text read this? Because you shouldn't put this out to the world. But they think, well, generative AI wrote this based on a good prompt that we gave. It's good enough, but it's not.
No, I got your point. But then on the other hand, you also have generative AI reading all this stuff, and then we'll filter out the point anyway and see there's no point in it, so we won't make it. So I don't not see this as a huge problem.
And the average human written press release isn't that well.
Oh, so it's not great either, but at least it's got some truth to it, just so hopefully, usually.
Yeah. But before that, you mentioned a very interesting point. You said, are we ever going to get there? And I think, yes, as humans, once we see a point, that's very, very interesting, we will get there.
That's the Evangelist coming out.
Exactly. I'm very sure. And it will take a lot of barriers, and it will take a while. But for the whole recruitment field, and the whole recruitment field is far broader than we see it now, because there's far more work that needs to be resourced, and there are far more people that can be managed. So the whole thing, the whole domain of matching people is so huge. It involves everything. It involves so much. There's so much potential in there. There's so much data in there that we can use. And in this field, there is so much room and potential for this type of technology. We are going to get there.
We are going to.
Yes, I also believe we will there. I'm also, every time you say we'll get there, I get that song in my head. I don't know what the song it is. Get there. Okay, I'm not gonna sing it.
Don't sing.
Let's go to your news, Jasper. So, what did you read yesterday or last Sunday?
Well, it's hard for me to talk about anything but Donald Trump. Well, maybe not in that sense. But the follow-up sort of to the US elections have been, it's been anything but boring. I follow it every 4 years because, I don't know, it's just fascinating. It's a fascinating country for all the right and all the wrong reasons. And I got to interview a Dutch startup recently in the field of deepfakes. And that's one area that's sort of deeply confusing and interesting at the same time. And there have obviously been more AI-generated images and deepfake videos just everywhere on the internet. And the one that's perhaps most known now is a sort of patriotic image of Taylor Swift dressed up as like an Uncle Sam type character and suggesting that she endorses Donald Trump. Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump, he said on his own little beautiful social network. But it's just so interesting because this is a nominee for the Republican candidate, for the Republican candidacy and for the presidential candidacy. Sorry, and he's just posting pictures of that are completely fake, just fabricated stuff. Yeah, and it seems like nothing's really been done because you get on Twitter, I'm still calling it Twitter, you get these notes, community notes, it's a fake image. But how many people have seen that, have gone like, oh, that's obviously real? Because these images look so good and these videos look so good and believable. Like, obviously, I've got a critical eye for it, and I know you do too, and probably you do too. Whereas you go, that's probably too good to be true. That should be fake. But there's so many people just reading that or seeing that image and thinking, well, that's the truth, because and that's part of the other thing. The other news that I read is that there's a sort of guild in the US for TV and radio. I won't bother you with the full name, but it's massive, and it's sort of advocating for laws addressing these deepfakes, because to observe and say, well, it's a deepfake is one thing, but it's sort of the misinformation and the lies spread by those deepfakes that you can never get back. you can never get back that initial moment of people believing that image. So there was this guy who was sort of addressing that issue, and he said, like, especially with elections being decided in many cases by narrow margins and through complex, arcane systems, these deep fake fueled lies can have a sort of devastating consequence, even though, like, there'll be a community note on it a minute later saying it's fake. People will have seen it. People might have not read the note. But it's an interesting sort of dynamic, I think. Because surely it can influence people.
Yeah, sure it can. But every time you say it, I think about yesterday night they had a party, and it was a really boring party. But I mentioned to take
Don't tell it to the people. I hope they're not listening.
I mentioned to take one picture of a really nice moment with a really nice sun going down, and on that picture it looked like a really nice party. I posted that on Instagram, and everybody thought I was at a really great party.
Yeah,
we are faking the world all the time already without AI.
Oh, absolutely. No, we're faking the world. Let's not dive into that realm. But you're right. That's true. That's absolutely true. But these are things dynamics that will shift people's attention. Like if you're a massive Taylor Swift fan and you see that image and you don't go like a moment further to think that image could be AI, because it looked, I saw it looked completely real. It looked authentic. Mm-hmm. It looked unrealistic, but authentic. You go and I don't want to know how many fans that she's got. A lot.
Sure. Sometimes I'm afraid of all the possibilities with these deep fakes with these war situations going on. Yes, this is really scary material. I'm just saying, I don't see what new law legislation could help here.
Yeah, I would cancel Twitter. Maybe that'd be good.
Well, that's what they do in Brazil.
Well,
so I really like it. I'm still thinking for quite some time. Should we stay on X? Or should we leave?
Probably not.
With our
with the company.
With the companies,
probably not. No. We've got it's gotten like it's a war zone out there. I feel like every time I log on, you see something controversial. It's like you've got an algorithm that isn't just for you anymore. It's trying to get you to be annoyed with certain things. Yeah. It's trying to rile you up. I think it's an awful platform. I used to use it all the time as a news source, just for everything, and it's become absolutely awful.
On the other way, I see it's a platform where everybody can have a voice, and that was the whole idea of democratization. And this is what we get when everybody has a voice. Maybe we need to train the algorithms better, so you get to see what you want to see. Apparently, you're now getting an image of people screaming something, and it's not what you want to see, and that hurts. But the thing is, what's real? Is this just a picture of the real world, or is it just the algorithms playing? Before you just say, let's just ban it, I feel like there is something very potential in a platform with a voice for everybody. We just don't know how to deal with it.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's partly,
It's Musk doesn't want it.
Well, he bought a platform sort of that he didn't want because legally he had to buy it because he messed up some legal document. Should have let it check by ChatGPT. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, we need a platform. Whereas I'm not sure I fully agree, because I think some people I don't really want to have their voices broadcast in the world. Some people's opinions are like, I don't even want to see them. But it's we all live inside our own bubble. But it's advocating for a bubble more so than free speech. I feel like currently, where it's sort of, if the stuff I see and I don't even click on it, it's just to rile me up. It's not based on my interests, or it's not based on what I want to see. It's just to get me politically involved for some reason. Yeah. And I feel like then the algorithm is manipulating its original intended use. But I can see why a country like Brazil goes and bans it, because it's like, obviously Brazil's maybe not the best example for a free speech great government, but it's I mean, I get why you come to that conclusion, even though I agree with you. Like, you need a sense of free speech. Obviously in Europe we find that extremely important, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to something else. Back to AI and something with recruitment, but not the recruitment, but more the candidate part, because I read an article on the Financial Times about half of all job seekers are using AI tools to apply for roles. So, because we're talking here about AI recruitment. Yep. But we should do another podcast more and more about AI and the candidates using AI.
Yep.
I think so. They use ChatGPT, also Gemini, to produce conversational passages of text to assist them in writing their CV, cover letters, and completing even completing assessments.
Yeah,
So so that's something I think. Cover letters okay, resumes okay, but completing resumes or assessments, that's something different. What do you think about it?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I'm just thinking, what's the other half doing then? I mean, I would not apply for a job without. Let's first. At first, we see this also. What we have this AI trained on this labor market data is able to predict the outcomes of assessments already. So the question is, where do we need the assessments? You don't need to for pre-selection, pre-screening, stuff like that. Maybe for some final selection, you hired somebody in the final check. Is it all true? Okay, put on some assessments. But this whole thing about assessment, I think it's going, it's not so important anymore because AI can do a lot of the predictions if you have basic data from people involved. That's something I think is really interesting. If where do we store your data about your career, the project you've done, stuff you like, your ambitions, stuff like that? Where's the place that you store the information and you make it accessible, either for yourself to look with the information, look for it at vacancies, or for hiring managers, recruiters to put that information in some database and give you interesting matching vacancies. So I think it's far more of a question. Where do we store the data? If I trust that place, I would start feeding it with a lot of information. For instance, if I would really trust my wallet, I would feed it with all my email conversations. And just do an AI analysis about it. What's the stuff I like? What's the stuff I get annoyed? What's the stuff? And then you, out of that, create a profile with skills, with my ambitions, with my personality. That's probably far better than any assessment could ever do because they're always narrow looking, and this is just broad looking. And put that, match that to the vacancy market. And then I'm not saying vacancies, but of course, work is far more than vacancies. Most hiring managers or most company they don't take the effort to put out a decent vacancy. And work isn't, of course, being able to put in vacancies in many of the times. It's just projects, role, task, very small things. If you can use AI also to get more overview of what if work is available, then there would be far more matches possible. We also need a different way of contracting there. Far more freelancers way of contracting, which is contradiction in how the government is currently trying to push out freelance stuff like that. But I don't think that doesn't really matter. What is the type of contract? It's about the idea that you're more flexible of taking work that you want, and the individual can decide. This time I want to be really flexible. Today this task, tomorrow this task, and next week in another company, or maybe for a fixed task for a certain period. Let me give an example. We're currently doing a project at Schiphol. Schiphol is a large airport where 300 different companies work together. Altogether, 75,000 people. It's the Amsterdam airport. And Amsterdam airport was last year in the news, 2 years ago, because of the long queues, the luggage getting lost, and stuff like that. So what happened is they're now doing a large improvement project, trying to get enough stuff at the airport, and people are just leaving there too soon. They don't want to work there. They're trying to make it more attractive to work there by combining functions that are now in different organizations. So we're doing an analysis with our skills information. What functions can have an overlap? So people can do in the morning this task, and in the afternoon this task, and maybe tomorrow this task, or next year grow to this. So you get a certain career path, and you do not work at one company, one function. Right. You start working in a community at an airport.
Yeah. Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and this is just a potential of stuff that I see coming up in many regions. For instance, regional marketplaces or companies working together in an ecosystem, sharing candidates, sharing employees. I think there's so much potential here. This is the big trend. I think that we're going to use that potential.
So you think AI helps us also to get rid of CVs, cover letters, and also maybe the vacancies?
It actually helps us to get rid of any standard format.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's just using raw data to compare it with raw data.
Yeah.
So we don't need vacancies, we don't need CVs. We just need information about me, what I like, and we need information about the work, and then it can start making matches.
Yeah.
And say, so you can go to some employer and say, hey, this is me, and this is what I want to work on. And an employer will say, whoa, this is exactly what I need. I wouldn't have thought about putting a vacancy out there when it doesn't have a function title, or I wouldn't have known, but I need you. And that's what we should talking about. What kind of talent do I need? What kind of talent do I have? And how do I want to put that meaningful to work?
Yeah. So we discussed on earlier episodes because will AI talk to AI? So the AI recruiter talk to the AI applicant,
Definitely, yes.
and the recruiter is doing something else, and
Yeah.
they communicate with each other, and maybe at the final stage, because there should be human for decision making, there will be some real contact.
Or shouldn't there be a human for decision making?
That's also an interesting question. Yeah.
At this moment, it's
Legally.
in the organization regularly you have to, and I understand why. But at the same time, we're making so many mistakes. I would say
in hiring.
first including in hiring.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have AI make a decision, or at least compare the situation with each other for a while. And in some cases, I'm not sure who I trust more to make the decision. Is it the human or is it the technology?
But should you already give Google or Gemini to do this, or maybe it's too early for them?
Those generative AI tools not linked to specific AI are worthless
For this,
for this purpose. If you combine them with each other, like we have the specific AI, but the specific AI problem is the function interface is not linked with generative AI, so it's really difficult to handle still for people.
Yeah.
And we are making it far more accessible, and generative AI is linking it to specific AI combinations. So then you can just ask a very raw question, and it gets a specific answer.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Nice. You just talked about the client Schiphol Airport already. Well, what type of customers are using 8vance?
It depends. Most of our clients are recruitment agencies, from smaller one person to the bigger ones. Using it as a matching technology, you can use our interface. You can use it as an API integration in your existing ATS or platform. Then there's governments using AI. In the Netherlands, we have the national government using it for job seekers, and we have local governments, and there are companies, large companies, and using it both for recruitment specific and also internal mobility related questions. Basically everywhere where there's matching available. We are broadening this field already. We have a client that's matching volunteers to questions. We have a client who is matching students to projects. So there's lots of matching opportunities out there. We still haven't found what's the specific market for us.
Yeah. Okay.
But the feedback has been positive mainly.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody loves the technology. It's just how to implement it. It requires a change of work, and that's what we're dealing with all the time. Implementation issues. Yes.
Yeah. When we talk about AI in recruitment, and we talked about this before, I think many recruiters are still just like using ChatGPT for their simple tasks, and because we started this podcast partly to sort of really dive into what recruiters can do with it. So going beyond the hype and not saying, well, this is awesome. Yeah, it's all awesome. But like at the end of the day, what are you going to do? What are you going to use? And you obviously speak to recruiters, and you're at events where plenty of recruiters there. So to what extent do you sort of see recruiters using and enhancing their work with AI? You know, there's obviously people that still to this day will be sort of scared, like, oh, it's going to take over my job. But what do you see in terms of this, just an average recruiter?
Of course, everybody's using it to publish vacancies, do marketing campaigns, job marketing campaigns, as candidates are using it to make applications. But that's just the first thing. The second thing I would say, and also looking at what takes the most of time at the moment, is all these phone calls. And so you see the robots coming up. And with the AI bots getting smarter, you start thinking, okay, they can do far more than just schedule an interview. They can do the interview themselves. With doing the interview, they can also, instead of just looking at one match, they could also look at all the potential matches in our database. Instead of looking at all the potential matches in our database, we could also check at how we can get access to more databases. So it's now becoming in the field of linking databases, both linking databases from candidates, so we can get more candidates into the system, and linking databases of vacancies, so we can match one candidate with more vacancies. So we're now entering into the world of just getting as much data there as possible. And with AI solving all the connection issues, it doesn't have to be standardized in the same way exactly to do a match. It becomes possible to match through a broad range of data sources. And then it's just a matter of the right about legislation and informing people where do I match my your profile. So, for instance, for quite many clients, we have shared their silver medalist, as they call them. Somebody applied for a job, you're being rejected for the job, so you do not get gold, you get silver. But you're still worth, and most companies, they just leave the rejected candidate, the silver medalist. But it's somebody worth because it's interested in the company, somebody intention in moving. So share the silver medalist with either another department in the company or with another company that you're collaborating with. And companies that start sharing these silver medalists, that's a very interesting trend in our clients at the moment.
Yeah, I really love it.
Yeah.
What I also love
is this tune.
Yes. ChatGPT news.
So the C word has been mentioned. Let's dive into ChatGPT news. What do you have for us, Martijn?
Yes, well, we talked a little bit about Google and Gemini, but OpenAI just announced Search GPT. They did it this summer, a new search engine powered by GPT-4 models. Instead of just showing links, this search engine provides AI-generated summaries of web content, complete with source links. So that's good. That's what I really like, the source, to have a source of what they produce. So still, it's in beta, a long waiting list. I just talked a little bit about how Google struggles with AI at this moment. Last year also with Bart, Gemini also some problems with images, etc. Do you think OpenAI can make something that would kill Google or?
Kill Google, that sounds a bit drastic.
Some other words for kill?
To slaughter, to murder Google.
Okay, you can exaggerate.
No, definitely no. I think there's room for quite many large players, all doing something more specific and next to each other. So I don't think Google is in any danger from this. No, not at all.
So they will be later at the party. That's something.
No, they'll just come up with something else. I mean, Google has so many different accesses. For instance, the email I mentioned before. If Google will integrate, and they are doing this, of course, and the question is, will they do it in the EU and stuff like that? But if Google is integrating this AI with all the information they already have from me, I would love it. I mean, it's just a matter of trusting Google, right? And I can say that you can trust Google.
We trust in Google.
But who do you trust? Do you trust Google? Do you trust the government? Do you trust whatever? But if you trust them, the potential of them having all this information about me, what is it now, for 20 years or something like that? Or I already have all my emails in Google. They know everything about my preferences, what I like for eating, for stuff like that. Yeah. Combine all this information with, now we're just talking about job market, with the stuff I like to work on. They might come up with something I haven't been thinking about myself. Hey, you're always going to this restaurant. At this restaurant, there's this job available. You haven't been thinking about doing that. You might like it. And there's incredible number of combinations that Google would come up with. Even including in my home, where Google with all this and all these others, they just know so much more stuff. It's just a matter of trust. What do I allow? What do I give the system? And I see the more the trust will grow, and the trust will grow with the better matches I get. I will be able to share lots of even privacy information with them, because I gain. That's the whole thing. I gain from getting so many good matches from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's also about whether we trust Google implicitly versus explicitly, I think, because implicitly we're already putting all that data into Google, not really thinking about it, because we're entering every single day. We Google for stuff. We use Gmail. We put stuff in there. Like it already knows everything. Yeah. It's just a matter of whether we would accept it to click a button that says transfer all this data to Google. People go, maybe not. But we'll see, I guess.
We don't use names in ChatGPT at this moment because they don't use it. But we Google the names. We use it on Google. So I still think we are using Google at this time more than ChatGPT.
Oh, absolutely.
Because OpenAI is a young company.
No, absolutely.
So.
Who knows? And from I have some sort of big news I came across from the Dutch legal world, because for the first time a judge in the Netherlands has admitted to using ChatGPT as an information source for ruling. So that is pivoting back to the point we just made. So a judge consulted with the chatbot to estimate the average lifespan of solar panels and included that information in the verdict. And there were some cybersecurity experts and other judges that were shocked by this decision, as described in the many articles written about it. Many believe it's sort of irresponsible to rely on an AI tool that can to provide that accurate answer. And it lacks transparency regarding its sources. So
it's so interesting. And if we would ask the same question to an expert, and the expert would say, "This is the number," we would rely on the expert. And how stupid it is! This is so many more data. So for many things, we rely more on the calculator, on the computer, on the data thing. And
but
this is just shifting. Of course, it's shifting.
Yeah. But this goes to prove that we're not there yet. I think because yes, like you're right. But I can also understand the other point of view. Whereas, like, where's that information coming from? Like, for me, one of the things I've been most frustrated with all these AI chatbots is just a lack of information. Like, where's the source come from? Where's this bit of information? But you can fact check that.
The thing is, just ask it. And it's always the thing with all these newbies coming to generative AI.
Yeah.
Whoa, why is it generating this image? And but you're just not asking, or just ask that question, and then it
Where's
gives
it
you
from?
the sources, or it doesn't, and then you know it. So instead of just giving the comment, just ask it.
But I think also a judge who said, "Oh, I googled this, so I think you're guilty." I don't trust it either. So
well, you I think with anything, like, you need to fact check what you're doing, right? If you're putting a verdict out, like, it's same I would do. Like, if I'm putting information in an article, I'll fact check that. I'll need multiple sources to get that same information. Otherwise, I'm not putting that out in the world.
I should do that also.
Yeah, it's a good. That's a pro tip for you. Yeah.
Okay. We talked also a little bit about the disillusionment phase we're in. If I look to recruitment, I see a lot of things happening. Do you think recruiters are more at the forefront of implementing AI than average, or?
Definitely not at all. I think they're really behind, to be honest.
Do you listen?
Sorry, guys.
It's a bit of a bombshell. Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, yes, I think this is a market where people earn a lot of money. There's a lot of money on the placement of people, and I think that in general it's far too much. If you just look at it at the Netherlands, there's being earned as much money in total as in Germany, which is 4 or 5 times bigger market.
Sorry again. Say that again.
The total amount of money being earned,
revenue
being on the placement of people, is the same number roughly as in Germany.
That's crazy.
Yes.
What's your source? No, that's crazy. Well, that's
look it up.
I'll look it up. But
I don't know the exact numbers, but I heard this, and I think I really trust this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
There's not just between Netherlands and Germany. It's also in general we are making so much money on placing people somebody else with all these assessments, recruitment, stuff like that. And this technology can reduce this amount of money enormously. And that, of course, is the big threat to all the recruiters. Yeah. And whether they're aware of it or not, or I don't know, but I think this is above the market, and everybody is keep on struggling the way they do, because at the moment they're making a lot of money from all these placements, and with these inventions, they might lose this money.
My favorite news is always like the big recruitment agencies, and I'm not going to name any names, saying, yeah, we've had a sort of record number of revenue this year. We broke the revenue record again this year. I'm like, but is that something you're really proud of? Like, is that something that you should be because obviously that is one side effect of your business, and that's great. Yeah. Is that something that you should be screaming at the world? Like, we've got $1 billion in revenue. Well, congratulations. Sure, you can make money. I don't mind. Anyone can make money, but it's...
Exactly. The number should be, this is the amount of people that still have no job. For instance, in the Netherlands, it's still crazy high. How many people? It's lower than ever, than always. But still, in this market, it's crazy, especially the youth.
But it's in every Western European country that I know of, Yeah,
exactly. And so these companies, they shouldn't be proud of matching so many people earning so much money. They should look at more difficult to match populations and see how they can help them. Also, with this kind of technology, can help a lot. To match them to job situations.
You can tell it to their stakeholders.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
they don't give a shit. No. Just make money.
Just make money. Yeah, that is a gruesome part of it. But you're right on that, because I think but to me that news is always like, oh, we've made $1 billion in profit. Well,
you started with the question: are the recruiters innovative enough? I think because of the shareholders and they just want to make money, I think they're not innovative, not in the forefront of this at all. No.
Well, plenty of more questions that we could ask probably. If I were to pick another one, do you sort of see a hands-on approach? Say a recruiter is listening to this and they're thinking to themselves like, okay, I want to make my job fairer to that target group that you just mentioned. Like I want to not just fill these jobs, not just go off of a time to hire metrics or stuff like that, but it's really like to make a difference. What would you say is the number one tip you would give, perhaps related to AI?
It's a matter of trust. If you see matching people with a difference to the labor market, people first think, oh, that's going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
But there's so much potential there, and there's also people helping in the guidance of those people. Try it. I would also say, and it's also related to AI. Lots of people talk about it, not really using it, really doing it. It's like teenage sex. So, I would say
AI is like teenage sex. You have to elaborate on that further, I think. Explain that.
Well, everybody's talking about it, nobody's doing it. Teenagers and sex.
I got it, but I just wanted to hear you explain it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's the same thing with here. Try using AI to see how you can break work down in smaller parts, smaller projects, smaller tasks. Okay. How you can match it, how you can describe this in a way that somebody with a more distance to the labor market that's not able to fulfill a complete vacancy, but could do a certain project or task, could do it. Then hand it over to some organization that's responsible for matching people with more distance to the labor market, because usually they're quite organized in the Netherlands in organizations with social purposes, and then say, hey, I need people for this specific task or role. Could you help me organize this? And then it's a matter of organizing that people start doing certain roles. There's so much more potential in putting these people to work, job carving, job crafting, just different way of organizing work. Mm-hmm. And it's a matter of start doing it. And it's a matter of trust in new people. I think very interesting was the Corona crisis, where suddenly lots of people were unemployed or not being able to work because the work was stopped. And then another things we needed to scale. And then we made many matches. By that time, I had my own platform, and I was matching government personnel, hospitals, nurses from one side of the hospital where the work was stopped to the other side of the hospital where there was suddenly enormous and lots of work. Yeah. We made many matches of matching people to different kind of work within the hospital, also with volunteers. And then because in the crisis time, and it worked. It was very successful. Suddenly, 3 months later, the hospitals realized we're not in a crisis as much as we thought. They went back to the regular way of working, and I forgot that they had quite a lot of good experiences with matching people to different roles at that moment. But everybody was in that moment quite happy and successful with this kind of technology. I thought we saw the potential, and I would start organizing it far more. And we will. I'm still in contact with quite many hospitals. They're doing projects to, of course, also organize healthcare more different way, because we see there's a problem with lack of personnel. We need to do it differently, but it's so slow.
Yeah. So we need some more crisis here.
Yeah. We need a crisis.
Yeah, we need more crisis.
I think that's a great bombshell to end the episode on.
Yes.
That's all for today. Thanks to you, Laurens, for coming onto the show. Where can people find you if they want to chat more about all things AI?
Thanks for having me. I'm trying to be all around everywhere. I'm the only one with Laurens Waling in his name. So Google me and find me. Send me a message on any of the platforms, you'll find me. Yeah.
Thanks for having you here, and stay tuned for more insights and updates on AIinrecruitment.com. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next episode.
We'll see you next episode. Thank you very much.